Hi, Happy New Year. I am Diana Rachel. I am the voice behind The Spirited Witch. So if you are here, you are possibly on my Substack or you are getting a ping email while you are binge watching something hopefully enjoyable on New Year's Day. So hi and welcome. I am so happy you're here. And so one of the little traditions that I have is sometime between winter solstice and New Year's Day, I do a 12-card pull, one for each month of the year. And so haven't had time to. I was a little busy getting married this time. So we're getting to it on New Year's Day this year. And I do want to tell little stories. Back in 2019, my life was falling apart in romance novel bad ways. And I tried to do a reading for the year and I could get nothing but an exact repeat of what had happened in 2019. So we all know how 2020 turned out. So I guess it was just tarot's version of just shaking its head and saying, I have no words. Hopefully it's not going to be like that today. So I am pulling the first card for January with the awareness that we all know it, like, buckle up actually is the right word for this year. It's going to be wild. So every year I am given a word that is my meditation and guide for the year. And it is things like trust and love and healing. And the word I got this year was chaos. I am not happy about that word, but let's see where it goes. Because chaos does not necessarily mean disorder. It can sometimes mean just the primal forces doing what they do, and they're primal forces. You just learn to work with them because there is no working against them. So January, and the card I'm pulling is the Ian card inverted. So we're going to see a lot of things come to an end, obvious, at least in the US. But given that it's kind of an end of an era thing coming into 2025, years that end in 0 and 5s do tend to be kind of special. There is something going on here where it's a huge cultural change. My guess is it's going to be the end of social media as we have known it in the last several decades, starting with the stuff with TikTok, but going on to many other things because it has affected our mentality in so many ways that a lot of people literally do not know how to function without an algorithm dictating what they experience. And Substack, reacting to Substack, and I Can Never, the Blue Sky app, and the reactions to that have made me kind of see that. I don't really want to comment on government changes just because I feel like there are big things brewing, and no matter what we do, we're going to be surprised. So for January, using the Tarot of the Spirit deck, and I absolutely love this deck. For astrology fans, it has like little astrology glyphs on it. I'll turn it around here, so you can get better keys to how you are reading it and where the energy lies. But we're looking at January, end of an era type stuff. So coming into February, and for me, February is exciting. It's the big Magic Workers convention I go to in Ypsilanti. It used to be in Detroit, called Convocation. I have been a featured presenter at it, but this year I'm just going to go have fun. But there's always big stuff that starts in February for me. So for me, in many ways, it's the beginning of my work year. And in February, I am pulling, it would be the 10 of Wands. Typically, in this deck, it's 10 of Fire in the cage inverted. And in my personal readings, it said a whole lot of truth was going to come out, like one secret after another, which I'm not really looking forward to because there's going to be so much stuff I don't need to know. But this is about being released from old inhibitions, released from old limitations. It's really kind of a freedom fighters card. It is just a whole lot of things are just going to be no more of this. We are not living with this structure anymore. We're done. Bye. So February, again, this is going to be a wild year. February is going to pretty much start strong with the wild. So there may be a period between January and February where it's just they looking around at each other going, now what? And trying to figure out what to make of it. But the unhinged begins probably just before Valentine's Day. So moving on, and yes, I know that I don't know if the patriarchy will ever truly die, but seeing it replaced with a healthier model would be good. So March is going to be the death card. So if you are not familiar with tarot, and probably you are familiar with tarot, so you've heard this spiel before, death is very rarely literal, but death can be very uncomfortable. So it usually means there's going to be a total transformation. So like REM, end of the world as we know it. I can't even be. There's just big stuff this year. So starting in March, it's going to get really trippy. Like just a lot of things just wildly transforming that we're just going to have to step up and transform our understanding. So given how hard this is going to be, keeping it in our personal lives, unless it's and you're being guided to go big or go home, this is the time where you step back, you do your self-care, you do a lot of identifying of, is this my problem right now? Because the world's problems are your problems, but they tend to happen on a scale where you just kind of go, I have this much energy. I have to do this much to make sure my family and myself are healthy and whole. And so here's what I can do for the world today. And March is going to be here's what I can do, because the world's kind of going to be very much on its own trip. So shoring up your resources, shoring up your safety, prioritizing rest, because the world's going to be wild. So coming from March, so the card for April is Earth inverted, Mother Earth inverted. And the first words popping into my head are climate instability. And I know I live in Michigan. We're seeing a climate change winter. It's just the schedule is changing. My growing season for my garden has changed, and we're going to start seeing a lot more unstable weather during that period. So, like, we already know that like California had its first tornado in public record ever in December. And we're going to see that in more places. So if you are in a position in life where you can get extra insurance, and make sure you check your acts of God clauses in insurance. I did just get my insurance license. I'm starting with a company that fortunately is not known for killing people. But definitely take a look at what you have agreed to, or if there's anything you can do now just in case the worst happens. And one of the other ones, and this is just popping into my head because this is like mom brain, finance brain. Home warranties are things that you no longer have to purchase just when you purchase a home. So there's a lot of little damages and things where a lot of these warranties will cover up to $4,000 worth of repairs in exchange for like what comes to $800 or $900 a year. It is worth the savings just for the one or two things that tend to go wrong a year. So seriously look into it. I'm not advocating any sales. I don't sell any products yet. This is just things I've learned from completely re-educating myself for the last 5 years on finances, because I came out of a very long marriage not knowing how to money. So for April, be on the watch out for a lot of climate craziness, especially. And it is Earth Day, so maybe start planning now for multiple possibilities, including rain. For May, we are seeing the Hanged Man inverted, so this is a lot of unnecessary suffering. This will be the time to stay offline, because you're going to be seeing injustice after injustice. So, and again, it's we want to do something, we want to throw magic at it, and it's not, partly because we're dealing with a world of 7 billion people, and that means all of the permutations and combinations of how we interact. So we can't just throw magic at a solution. We have to pick aspects of the solution and aspects that reach us that we can put our magic and our energy and our volunteer work into. What I will recommend for this unnecessary suffering is, one, in your personal lives, go through the list of, is this really a me problem? Or is this me just letting someone dump their stuff on me? Especially since femme folks especially get trained to do that. Men do in a different way. So really identify what really is and isn't a you problem. And then from there, how much room do you have to be generous? And what would be the most meaningful to you if you helped with it, even if it was something as small as writing a letter to someone who's been falsely imprisoned, or sending a donation to the Red Cross or to a mutual aid society that is in your community. So find the thing that is meaningful, and even if it's not the great big save the world energy, it's the communities, the communities that are small but healthy and supportive survive almost no matter what. It's when you're trying to do the big dramatic swings, that's when you burn out and there's very little change. So focus on the patch of land you're standing on. Focus on the 4 people most immediately connected to you, and focus on having your boundaries and making sure that they're healthy, with the understanding that people will always disrespect your boundaries. So it is up to you to enforce them, usually by removing yourself when they don't. So we are at, I apologize. Some of this is just the things that come out of my mouth while I'm doing this. It's not like a specific plotted thing. 3, 4, 5. So June, we are into June. So that June wants to come from here. So June is the karma inverted card. So I guess it's going to be the summer of injustice. If you are able to afford to, buy your dash cameras, make sure you know how to document things well, and do your best to keep up with changing rules and with moving goalposts on rules, and making sure that you have all of your affairs in order in case something happens. So those morbid curiosities that you're having now, follow up on them, prepare for them as best you can. If you need help with things like wills or other legal documents, frequently, if you contact your local library, they can hook you up with programs that are available. I know that in the past, like when I lived in Minneapolis, they had a really robust community education program for adults where I was able to get my will and living will done and have people that were in the class with me witness it. So just reach out to your libraries. You can just do it online. Most of them have a portal, and just say, hey, can you show me where I can look for this, especially if I happen to have no funds? So, because these are still good things to make sure you're protected, and maybe even have a just in case I need bail, and like the phone numbers you need memorized or whatever it is. Just look at what you are likely to do when things get really unjust, and understand what preparations you need to make for yourself and for the people that will be impacted by your actions. So coming up into July, to a fire, a convergence. So July is gonna be a big drama month. So, and in the US, it's fire, fire, fire. People occasionally, like every July, people lose limbs because they just get very excited about the fireworks. And apparently they just decide the fireworks are more important than their body parts. And yes, it is a very America thing. No, it is not universal to our culture, but stereotype doesn't come from nowhere, I'm so sorry to say. But there's going to be some big things. There's going to be like a big political summit that affects us on a personal level. So something huge is going to coming in July. All right. And then coming into August. August, the lightning path. So the drama continues. Like there is not a single non-drama card that I have pulled as of yet. Yikes. So the lightning path is typically the 8 of Wands, and often this is one I'd have to see the writer, the Coleman Smith version. Usually when you get into the upper sections of the wands, it's a lot of pushing, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of labor. And then there's this point where you either do the labor or you burn it down. My feeling is this is kind of like a lightning rod, where there's going to be something that happens in July, and in August, it's going to be almost like what we heard about the history with the Bay of Pigs, where it's just the near miss. So okay. So coming over to September, seeing Sacred Cord inverted, 2 of Water. So this is usually the 2 of Cups in a traditional tarot deck. And if it's inverted like this, it means there's going to be the end of some significant relationships. Now, given that I'm doing this for the whole year, and in general, there's going to be a breakdown. There's going to be something that has been a functional relationship for the world as we know it, for the society we're living in, at least on the US side, that isn't going to be there anymore. So there's a lot of just people coming in and burning it down. So coming from that, so August, that's September. October, we're going to see Sister Earth inverted. So we're going to see more climate change. We're going to see longer growing seasons in the Northern Hemisphere. We're going to see longer winters in the Southern Hemisphere. And it's not going to be as impactful as when you see winter ending, because that's where you see it with a lot of flooding and drought in all of the places where flooding and drought's the wrong thing to have happening. And because in the north, a lot of our water systems are impacted by snowfall in the winter, and we haven't had a lot. So you will start seeing things like stretched out autumns and drier leaves and leaves drying up without changing color more and things like that happening. So I'm getting the feeling that one, it's going to be an extended summer, but it's not going to be a healthy one. So just because it's bad does not mean there's nothing you can do to offset. But remember, on the personal level, what you can really do is simply just adapt what you're doing personally and understand that the companies that have tried to make it a you problem have been gaslighting you all along. So adapt any gardening you do, explore guerrilla gardening, explore buying directly from farmers near you. So if you Google like farms near me and look for the small family farms you can buy from directly, this will reduce some of the impact and cut out the middleman where a lot of the climate destroying stuff comes up when you're bringing in food and goods to your family. It's occurring to me that the big severance is probably going to be corporate, and that means that take a look at in your country where you do the most trade with or where you get the most cheap stuff from. So the US, hands down, we get the most cheap and insignificant stuff from China. And if you're following the news at all, it does look like those relationships are about to go kaput. That does mean that, that's a huge increase in the price of consumer goods. It's going to be harder to find things that we take as everyday conveniences. And, anything that you want, having nice things will just be more expensive, but they will also be nicer things where saving and planning makes more sense because they would last longer. So look, again, this is the look into how our grandparents and great grandparents did it during the Depression. And, most of us are in this trap of money and time are both at really short supply, and we don't have enough of either. So creating ways to survive while everything is constantly being drained from us is tricky. But, again, I believe in magic, and I believe that if you do it for the right personal reasons and build your bubble with a community bubble to join in mind that is healthy and inclusive, a lot of this can be adapted to in such a way that it doesn't have to be this horrible, negative, catastrophic impact. Just understand that there's going to be a lot of people trying to convince you that just because you existed at this time, it is somehow your fault, and it's not. It's just, this is the situation. For those of us that were not like shareholders and, generationally wealthy, we were kept out of these decisions, but we're the ones dealing with the consequences. So we can create new structures where, the shareholders just don't benefit from the decisions we make for ourselves. That's what you got to do. So coming up next, so this is the November card. The November card is the Hermit. So, and I kind of want to make a joke about the November card that this is the one where everyone decides to stay home for Thanksgiving. And it might actually be, I am hoping it is not because of a massive illness going around again, because we do not learn and we are social animals. So if you're going to be stubborn and you are that extroverted, seriously consider investing in an outdoor heater. I got my partner a wood pellet burning stove for Christmas. So we have that so we can have outdoor parties in winter for people that still don't want to be inside because they catch colds easily if you're that close to that many people. But this is one where I'm kind of getting the sense this is almost like a country egregore that's like doing the here I go again on my own. Like I'm hearing isolationism and being kind of stuck in. So again, even if the externals and the big government things go isolationist, you don't have to, but you can be very conscious about how you do it. And if you do need privacy, if you do need rest, if you do need to give your nervous system a day off, that's okay. That is okay. I am kind of going through my own lifetime friendship and relationship audit right now because I turned 50 this year, and I've done pretty good at improving my situation. But it really does come down to, okay, why did I spend so much time with people I knew that looked down on me? whether it was my family, whether it was so-called friends, whether it was people in organizations. Like, why did I spend time on this when I could have given my time to people who respected and accepted me for who I am? And I also have to stop and go, am I spending time with people I look down on because it gives my ego something? Am I doing that? If I am, why am I doing that? What am I getting out of that? What does that say about me? And do I want to be that person? Which is almost always no. So this is what the Hermit card is bringing up with in my mind for November. And, while you're doing your January to spring cleaning, if you are the sort who does that, this is a good time to be meditating on that while you're cleaning, or just thinking through or making the cleanup list for your personal relationships. So coming around to December of 2025, interesting, is the Mastery card. So all of that drama, all of that scary. So the Mastery card would typically be the Four of Wands, where it's usually, I think is it the Two of Wands or the Four of Wands, where you're like looking out over the expanse. But in this card, it's okay, we've been here before. We have survived exactly the same drama before, and we got it this time. So for a little bonus, because I like to do things in 13s, it just makes me very happy as a witch. Coming into January, that doesn't feel right. Like, it's not a good card, but it just literally is like, I pick the cards up by how they vibrate under my hands. And it's like, yeah, that's what they wanted you to draw. Here, draw the real one. The real one is the High Priestess. So I know a lot of folks watching, or that will watch this later, associate the High Priestess with matriarchy, although that's more the Empress, or, the Divine Feminine. I have a different view on the Divine Feminine, where it's not an anchor. It's much more fluid than that. But there is something about insight and leaning into wisdom and leaning into what we've learned and learning to flow with it in a way that we haven't before. So especially in the culture that I am speaking from, where it has been all fire and burn and burn yourself out, and you need to get rich, so you need to be on this hamster wheel where you're never going to actually get anywhere, but you're paid just enough to think that you might. And then it's suddenly we've shored up our resources. We've been writing this drama. We're going to let things flow and cool and calm. We are going to talk to the grandmothers that have kept the recipe books and know how to get through this. We're going to be writing and updating those recipe books with the tools we have now. So that it's going to be a wild ride for 2025. So my general suggestion, as opposed to advice, is shore up the ways you want to rest. And that means get yourself that new water bottle. Make sure you've got like a reminder in your calendar to wash your water bottle so you don't have surprise illnesses all the time, because that's one of the things that gets me. Make sure your bedroom is in the best shape you were able to get it. Prioritize the place you rest. Prioritize who you rest with and how you rest. I'm seeing some things on Book Talk and Bookstagram about normalizing getting together with friends just to read without the pressure to interact. I think that's fantastic. Normalize those things where you build together, where you don't have to have a social hierarchy in order to enjoy each other. And, finding your free stuff group, your trade groups, finding the people that are just interested in the things you are, and being able to talk about it in a healthy way without that feeling of having to win someone over. Just looking for that feeling of, I enjoy you, because that is less stressful and more restful. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm going to see, I don't know if we had, this is the first time I've used Substack Live, so I don't know all the features yet. So if there are comments or questions, and again, I'm Diana Rachel. I am the voice behind the Spirited Witch Substack. So I think a lot of you did find me through the mail that I sent out just now, because I thought it would be fun to do this for a New Year's treat. I do take private clients and readings. I'm best known for my books, Urban Magic and Hex Twisting, Counter Magic for the Irritated Witch. And yes, I do readings, general divination, and past life work, curse breaking, ancestry work, because it does all weave together in different ways. So you can find me at dianarachel.com booking for that. So I'm just going to drop that in there. if I can. Hey, yay for auto text actually working. Just, I do have an unholy relationship with the word ducking. So there you go. So happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for spending the time with me. And, if people have a good response to this, I might try to make this a once-a-month thing, although I'm, not going to try to take on the whole of 2025 all at once because yikes. So thank you, everyone. Happy New Year.